Hrutkay Mods, and welcome to episode 15 of season 4 of my PowerPC series. Today's episode we have this Power Mac G3 you've seen in many videos before. And today we will be opening it up and taking the Yikes G4 that's in it out of it to put what's in this in it. What is in this, you may ask, is a Sonnet 1 GHz card with everything you need. And this will convert this ZIF system into, well, another ZIF system, but with a new 7450, 7455, a newer G4 in it. I can't remember exactly which one it is, but in today's video we'll first be tearing this down and looking at it, cleaning it up, if I can find my thermal paste. Oh, there it is. And trying to figure out everything we need to do with it, make sure it's in good shape before we put it in the system. And this it's a pretty neat card, and before you do this, of course, you need to flash the system, but if you've seen in previous videos, we've already flashed this system, so in theory this should all work by just plugging it in. Thing is, I don't even know if this works in the system, because the first ones that came out only worked in the original beige towers, and not in this. Yeah. So if it doesn't work in this, we'll have to go pull out my beige G3 and try that. Not sure if that's going to work, but yeah, that's what we have on the docket today. We'll be tearing this down, making sure everything's nice and done, and well, let's get to it. Alright, so here's the Sonnet 1 GHz card, as we can see here. It's a very beefy card that requires a lot more power, so it actually needs more power from the power supply here. So that would plug straight into the power supply's, whatever, how many pins that is, connector, and then plug into the card. But right now we don't need this wire, so let's unplug it. And here's the card. It's pretty neat. It almost looks like a dual CPU. It isn't. I don't even think this system would be able to handle a dual CPU. But there's where the CPU is. And it would be right here under heatsink. It's a pretty neat little card. But there's a strong drawback of this, which we'll have to compare the Yikes G4 that's in the G3 over there with this. Because to make this run at 1 GHz, you have to slow the clock bus down to 66 megahertz instead of 100 megahertz, which means even though the CPU's processing faster, it's getting bottlenecked through that system. And that's just because the way the jumpers are on that system, it will not go over. I think it's like 500 megahertz or something like that with the stock 100 megahertz bus. Only way to get faster CPU speed is to slow down the megahertz on the bus, and it causes bottlenecks, of course. So even though it's processing faster, it's actually performing similar to the speeds of that, probably. You'll have some improvements in some benchmarks, but other benchmarks it will hurt. So let's first take and tear this apart and see what's inside of it and what makes it tick. So let's get to it. Okay, to start tearing this down, I've came across one little problem. It uses really tiny, weird little Allen hex bits. And I don't know if I have those. I hope I do in my iFixit kit. But I think if we take these four off, the heatsink should pop off. So let's first start by pulling the fan headers off here, like so, and we'll see if I can find the bit for that. Let's see. Oh, okay, it's still a little stuck. There we go. I don't know what just fell off there. Oh, it's got little spacers. Okay. Grab the little spacer. Grab the little spacer. Grab the little spacer. Grab the little spacer. That thermal paste is actually still pretty good looking. I don't know if this has been used a whole lot. Let's see how old this is. We have a 7455A. It was built on the 16th week of 2003, if I read that right. So that's pretty neat, considering the most that these could run was a 7400 factory. That's a big leap in performance there. So this should be interesting. So I'm going to clean this all off, get it back together, but before we do that, that's what it looks like there. Pretty darn cool. Anyway, after I get this back together, we're going to hook the G3 up with the Yikes G4 in it, run some benchmarks, see how it performs with those, and then we'll plug this in and see what happens if it works at all, which I don't know if this is the right model or not, so we're going to find out. So let's get to it. Okay guys, so we have the PowerMac G3 running with the Yikes G4 in it right now, as we can see here. It's 400 megahertz PowerPC G4. I want to say this was a PowerPC G4 that was a overclocked for 450. I guess I didn't change the clock back, because I think this is a 400 already. Or no, come to think of it, this is my Sonnet card, I think, in this thing right now, not a Yikes G4. So it's got a Sonnet card in it. And if you look at the specs right here, this is the specs we're dealing with right now. It's got a PowerPC G4 in it, the PowerPC Max, 400 megahertz, 1 meg of L2 cache. It's got a gig of memory in it. That's the actual specs of it. So it's got my Sonnet card in it, I think, not the Yikes that I had overclocked. So it's actually, in a way, probably going to be a little slower, and in a way, I think a little faster, because I can't remember, but I want to say, not 100 on this, but I want to say there's more L2 cache on this card, but I'm not 100 on that. So don't hold me to that. But we're running at 100 megahertz. We're going to actually test it and see just how benchmarky it is by starting with Xbench here and seeing where it takes us. So we'll do, we'll just let it do its whole thing and see what it does. So let's start. So I just noticed one problem here. It's indexing in the background, so that will slow everything down. So let's stop and start it all over again in a minute. Okay, so it's not indexing anymore. So let's try this all over again. Alright, so we got our first results here. CPU and everything scored a 15.82 in Xbench. Let's see here, so let's save that. 400. Put that on the desktop and save it. So we got that done. Now, where the big test will be is where it's actually tested in Geekbench 3, I think. That will show some of the differences when we put in the new card, if this new card works. So, okay, so my Geekbench 2 is activated. We're going to see what happens. Finally finished. So with all this, we scored a 225, which I think is actually slower than my Yikes G4 at 450. I'll explain real quick why this particular CPU runs at 400. That's because if it is the Sonnet card I'm thinking it is, it's set at 400 and it only works at 400 because Sonnet put the jumpers on the card and it overrode the jumpers that are on this motherboard. Well, logic board. Back in the day, for the Motorola and IBM-based ZIF cards, you had the 233 to 450 G3 and the 350 and 400 Yikes G4 cards. The 233 through 333 ran at 66 megahertz bus speed, and you could usually upclock them about 33 megahertz or so. And the 300 to 450, including the Yikes, all ran at 100 megahertz bus, which this runs at 100 megahertz bus stock. This card, though, that's in it right now, it overrides all these jumper settings. Okay, the logic board in this, for those original cards, you could tweak the clock speeds and stuff with the jumpers to make it run faster, and if you couldn't get it to do it with the multiplier, you could do it with the bus speed. Well, this, all Sonnet cards that I know of that were ZIF based had it built in, which is also kind of a pain in the butt because that means you can't actually overclock these cards without modifying the jumper on them. And I think the jumpers are probably in this area or right there. I'm not really sure, but I don't think they're really modifiable. So when you set this card in, it should automatically clock this to 66 megahertz and the multiplier, which would run it at 1 gigahertz. Where that one, when you put it in, it automatically made sure the jumper was set to 100 and the multiplier at 400. So that's why this runs slower than my Yikes G4, which I had running at 450, even though it was a 400 card. So that will give you an idea of what will happen when we plug this in, if it works. I hope it does after filming all this. But anyway, we got a 225 right now on Geekbench, and we are getting ready to save this. And this took like 12 minutes to run. It took a long time. We'll save this to the desktop S400. Save. We're going to shut the system down and open it up. So let's get to it. Okay, so here is that Sonnet G4 we were talking about, the 400. And here are the jumpers that Apple didn't want you to bother with. That's why it says void if still broken, the warranty and stuff. But really easy to set all that. And honestly, you could pull that up without ever damaging the sticker. Apple wouldn't know any better. But, well, of course, this is way out of warranty now. So we're going to pry this heatsink off, which is a little toasty. And we're going to attempt to install this if I can figure out how that works. So let's get to it. Is this the Sonnet card? I can't tell. The Sonnet card was a 7410. This is a 7400. This is not the Sonnet card. This is actually my Yikes G4, I think. So 33rd week of 1999, probably my Yikes G4. So I don't understand why I never set the clock back to 450. Oh well. But anyway, here's the fun part. Figuring out how this goes in. We'll first take the cord out here. I want to say it goes like this. It does. It goes like this, which might mean that this is the wrong card, because I don't think that's how they sit. We're about to find out. Okay. You set it in like that, and that might be the way it sets, come to think of it. Put that in like that. Then we unplug the power cable here. Yeah, maybe. Like so. Plug that into there. Plug that into there. And plug this into here. And if the computer is flashed properly, it shouldn't give us any error beeps when we try to turn it on. If this is indeed the right card for this, that's what it looks like installed. So let's find the power cable. I think it's this one. And press the power button and see if the fans kick on. Nothing is happening. I was kind of afraid of that. This might be the wrong card, or I may have to set the bus speed jumper first. There's a strong smell coming out in this power supply now, and I don't see any life at all when I press the button. Huh. Okay. In that case, unplug it, unplug this, remove that, see if the computer just died on me. Ow. Did it just die on me? I think it just fried the computer. Well, that's a problem. There's no power now. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's wired differently. Maybe that's the problem. It's not a direct pass-through. Maybe it's got to be completed. Well, crap. It just came back to life. I don't know what happened. But it turns on again. The power button also sticks. But, yeah, that's a common blue and white thing. Will you pop out? There we go. So, I guess let's try the other card again and see what happens. I was playing around with what I think is the CUDA button and the power button, onboard power button. I don't know how to tell the difference between this one and the other one. So it might be this is the wrong card for this system. But it does fit So maybe not. And maybe it needs a jumper setting, and maybe it doesn't. I don't know. So make sure all these are seated right. Plug that in. We'll, hey, it turned on. Is it going bong? It sounds like it's booting. Okay, that's a good sign. So we'll unplug it for now. And we'll close it up and hook everything back up and see what happens. It's a good sign. Okay, now it doesn't fit together right. There we go. Okay. Plug that in. Power supply's got a very definite I'm dying smell to it, but then again, I think it's had that since the rat pee incident when I first got it. So it might be all right. Plug this back in. Okay, that should do it. Turn this light off and press the power button. Press the power button. Press the power button. Press the power button. Now you just saw it turn on, didn't you? Well, our power button might be going out. Maybe the internal power button. Can't get more annoying than this. It's on. See if it shows any life on the screen. Which now, for the life of me, I can't line up properly. It's not making any boops or bongs. I don't know if it's working or not. It sounds like it's trying to do something, but it's not doing anything. So it might still require a jumper setting, or the card itself just doesn't work in this system. I don't know which. Okay, so I've already filmed the ending of this video once, where I decided it was going to be a two-parter because I couldn't figure out why it was not working. And I was right. It does need the bus speed set. Originally, I was giving up. It's late at night. The internet had gone out because a storm had rolled through, and I couldn't look up the jumper settings. Well, I managed to find the Sonnet instructions, and we'll have to take this jumper setup out. So we just lift this up like so. And the Sonnet kit comes with a bunch of SCSI jumpers, which fit on these pins. The problem is, I don't have those jumpers, so we'll have to set these. The other problem is, I have a bag of jumpers somewhere. I don't know where they are. So I'm going to set these jumpers, and I'll have to find something to pull those pins out to do it, or find my SCSI jumpers, and we'll see if that fixes everything, because in theory this should just work since it's already supposedly flashed. So we'll see. Okay, so to not mess up my good jumper block here, I decided to use the parts blue and white jumper block and change all the pins around. So when I plug this back in, it should do everything. And this should now work if I can get it past the warranty sticker. It's plugged in. It looks good. It's lined up. So now, if we plug everything back up properly, it should bong now and boot. We're going to see. Okay, so here's the moment of truth. Will it turn on? It does turn on. Well, I'm pretty sure I put the jumpers in the correct way, according to the instructions. So I think it still needs flashed. Okay, so we put the Yikes G4 back in it, and we're just leaving that dangling for now. Let's see if it bongs. If it bongs, it means it needs flashed, which means the flash that's on it isn't compatible with the card, and that's just going to make this even more fun. So, let's see. Yep, it needs flashed. Wonderful. Now I need to find the software for it. And now that this is running at 66 megahertz, I bet you this CPU is running pretty darn slow. We'll find out, because I don't feel like changing the jumpers right now. Yep, the G4 is running a little slow. It is running at 66 megahertz, so I did set the jumpers right. The Power Max firmware that's on this definitely is not compatible with that card. And to make it even better, my internet went out again. This is like some kind of cruel joke because I am so close to getting it to work. And I'm getting to the point where I am just too tired to finish tonight. And this still might end up being a two-parter. I'm going to go try to fix my internet one last time and try to get the firmware downloaded. If I can find it. So, we'll see. Okay, so I ended up going next door again and resetting the internet for the second time. And after about 10 minutes, the internet came back on, which was great. I went over to the Sonnet website, and the files were still there, which was awesome. And I have them right here, and I'm hoping that I have this formatted right, otherwise this won't work. So let's stick it in. Try the USB 2. It doesn't really matter, they're small files. It's not formatted correctly! Yay! Yeah! Okay, so I plugged the drive into my white MacBook, connected it through the network to it, copied the files over from the white MacBook straight to the Tiger drive. It should be in the main directory right here. There they are. Okay. So first I have to run this, I think. Continue. 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 Yeah, I read it. Continue. Install. Close. Applications. Firmware updater. This will update the ROM and add the Sonnet patch. This requires administrator access. It also requires to be in programming mode. Right. Okay. So we gotta get it into programming mode. I am really tired at this point. Cancel. I'm quite aware of that. It's been a long time since I've done programming mode, so I don't know if I remember how to do it. Should be interesting. I think you hit the power button and the program button at the same time until it beeps. beeped. So now we're in programming mode. Now we just wait the 5 hours for it to boot back up at 300 megahertz. Needless to say, this is easier to do it in OS 10 than it is to do it in 9.2, which the original instructions say you need to do it in 9.2, but they apparently updated the software in 2007 so it would work with Tiger, which makes this a lot more simple. So let's see what happens. Well, I think it's flashing. Unrecognized ROM. That's not a good sign, because that translates to I've got to go back to the stock firmware, which means I need to find a G3. I've got another idea. So if we can't use this system, I've got another G3 blue and white somewhere, which we can use. We just need to transfer the drive over, and I'm really tired at this point. Let me go find it. Okay, so here's a parts machine that Michael Stanhope gave me, aka Mike's Mac Shack. He gave this to me about a year or so ago. This is a revision A machine, where the other one is a revision B. But I've put all the parts that were in that, all the RAM, the video card, all that stuff into this. I don't know what the specs are otherwise, and I don't know if it works. Shouldn't be a difference in performance between the A and B, other than the fact this has the crappy IDE controller that screws up everything in OS 10. Hopefully it doesn't do it this time. It's only got one drive plugged into it, so we should be safe. So we're going to power on, hopefully, and it should just work. It should just work. There we go. Hey, it works. It's awfully quiet. But yeah, see if it shows a video. If it shows a video, it's showing a video. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it into flash mode and try this again. It won't shut off. We're going to put this into flash mode and try again. Round 23. Yeah, this one's got a lot better speaker than the other one does. Never mind, it still sounds like garbage. So, first off, I want to know what the specs are, because I'm just kind of curious, because I can't really read them on the label. It's running. I know the clock's dead. About this Mac. It is a base model 300. It should be running at 100 megahertz bus. Yeah, it's a base model 300, as we can see right there. So now we're going to try to flash this one. The ROM should work on this one, I hope. That's a good sign. Now the reason why the other one didn't work, that's a really good sign, is because it's got a PowerMax G4 firmware on it, which is not made by Sonnet. And I think I have the flashing software on it, but I don't want to flash it back and put a G3 in it again. So we're using this one. And this one should, in theory, work. So now I gotta put the jumper block in it and put that card in it, and we should be good. Hopefully. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. Screwdriver, jumper block, CPU, first off, let's put the jumper block on. Like so. Then we pop the CPU off. Maybe. Woo! A tiny little CPU die. It's definitely an IBM CPU. Yep, that's definitely an IBM CPU. Set this into there. Like so. Put that on there. Put this into there. Like so. Carefully close it. Maybe. Carefully close it. What the hell? Carefully close it. There we go. Spin the monitor back around. Plug the keyboard back in. Walk around. Turn this light back off. Zoom back out. Like so. Press the power button. It bonged. This has been a nightmare so far. At least it's booting now. Look at the little teeny weeny G3. Oh, isn't it cute? Well, it boots up a bit quicker. But cache shouldn't be enabled yet. There's a fix for that, which we're going to do before we start benchmarking. But let's first look, see what we got here. I know, shut up. Shut up. 1 GHz PowerPC G4. It's still pretty slow, but also doesn't say anything about cache, which we've got enable. But as you can see there, it is running. So we now go to applications. It's not in applications yet. We go to Tiger, Sonnet cache. Okay, restart. It definitely takes longer to boot. I don't know if that means it's enabled the cache or if it's having problems reading the cache. That's slower too. That's not a good sign. 1 megabyte of L3 cache. Oh, I didn't know I had L3. I mean, that would make sense. It is a 7455. Okay, that should, in theory, make it quite a bit quicker. It's got L2 and L3 cache. Who knows? The bus speed might not affect it as much. So what we're going to do is make sure nothing's running in the background. We'll run Xbench. save this one. Save. So we'll compare these after we run everything. And run. Okay, so that test took roughly the same time as the other G4 did, but it says it's about twice as fast. We are going to compare these in a minute. I've got an idea. But right now, let's save this. One. Save. So we're going to close that, and I'll be back in a minute. So we're back to my old power Mac, and this is probably why it's running at 400 megahertz. This is a 400 megahertz chip, so it should be able to run at 450. And I know I've had it running at 450 before. It doesn't work anymore, so I gotta unoverclock it. That was my other idea, to run this at 450. And the other chip that I've been thinking of that I thought was in this is in my Power Mac 9600, and it's a Sonnet 500 running at 450 because of the clock speed and stuff. The bus speed. So, yeah, I guess that's not going to work. We were going to compare it to a 450. I could go next door and grab the 500, but I really don't feel like it. It's been a long day. So I'm going to unoverclock this because it's panicking. And we're going to get it back to where it was. So I guess let's get to it. Okay, so here are the results. As we can see here, everything was the same hardware-wise other than the CPU. And Xbench shows that it really wasn't a giant difference in results. As we can see here, the CPU test was significant, but it still didn't push it up enough. The old CPU was 21.2, where the new CPU was 45.66. It was quicker though in calculations. Now going in between, that's where it was probably hurting. So let's go to memory test. Memory test was actually quicker. Huh. How about sequential write and stuff? Okay, here we go. The write and read were slower on the slower bus CPU on most tests, which would make sense because it's got to communicate between RAM, CPU, drive, like that, and if it's going slower, even if it's calculating faster over here, it's still going to go like this over there. So that was indeed a bit slower, but for high performance calculations, it was a little bit quicker. It wasn't a huge difference on Xbench though. Where it was a pretty significant difference, and I've been showing you this online, but apparently Geekbench's uploader doesn't work anymore on this. I could probably upload it through another system. I used to do that, in fact, but I can't now. I don't know if they finally killed that off, but we can still pull these up. And the 400 got a 225 versus the 1 gigahertz, which got a 477. And see if I can get these to line up next to each other. It's a little challenging with this tiny monitor. Okay. And this is where it's easier online. But anyway, integers were a lot faster. Floating point was faster. Memory performance was slightly faster. But if you see here, stream, the memory bandwidth performance was a lot slower. And that's because of the bus speed. And when you need high intensity memory processes, that's where it's going to hurt. But as we can see, it did have L3 cache. So it had significantly more cache, which helps a lot with calculations. So that did help some. Integer scores, quite significant. What else? Floating point, quite significant. This is still easier online because it does short bands and stuff, comparisons. Memory performance, a little different, but not huge. But this is where it hurts. It's in the stream score, and that's the communication between memory and CPU. So, yeah, that hurts because the bus is slower. But all in all, bus speed might not really hurt that bad as long as you don't need a memory-intensive application. So is it worth this card, especially today, knowing how much I paid for it? No, I'm not telling you how much I paid for it. Is it worth today buying it? Probably not. But it was a fun thing to play with once I figured out how to get it to work. And it did make a huge difference. It just wasn't, still wasn't great, but you know. Plus I had to change the system midway through the video to actually run the CPU because how this one's flashed. But I'm going to keep my Yikes G4 in this for now. I don't know why it's not letting me run it at 450, but go figure. But yeah, that's the end of today's video, guys. Don't forget, I do now have a Patreon if you'd like to support me. Also, I'd like to do a major shout out to my most recent patron, Noah Becerra, aka Athlon. He did the channel intro music, and he does a lot of music that I use all the time. You really should check him out. Check him out on Bandcamp. Thank you, Noah, for the support. And yeah, if you want to support me, there's a link at the end of the video and also in the description below. And hey, this was a pain in the butt and took hours longer than it should have, but I got it to work. Here's the CPU right here. It worked. And I tell you what, it got warm. It got really warm. But yeah, it worked. So yeah, if you guys found this video interesting, I have a lot of videos on CPU upgrades and whatnot in the PowerPC channel series and whatnot. So if you like that kind of stuff, go check out my past videos. Stick around, we'll have more videos coming soon. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video. This has been a Hrutkay Mods video. What's with that look?
Maybe I shouldn't be here because I'm just going to crack it the whole time.
Why?
Because ew. Maybe you should move your Flaming Hot Mountain Dew.
What?
So people know you have.
Sponsored by Flaming Hot Mountain Dew.
You're crazy.
Maybe. Ooh, that's spicy. That's a no. I got you. All right, ready? I wing every video I film. I just have a general idea what I want in my head and it spills out in my mouth. And usually it's very wrong the first 2 or 3 times I say it.
Okay.
All right? Greg Hrutkay, Hrutkay Mods, and welcome to episode 15 of season 4 of my PowerPC series. Today.